Okay, so I wanted to do a very quick update. It's been about 3 or 4 weeks, I think, since I've done a video. I wanted to touch base with you and give you a very quick update. There'll be a few more videos after this. We had some questions that were submitted. Apparently, Candace had asked if there were more questions or anything that anybody wanted to know. So there was a series of questions. I think that's the right way to do it, is when we get them in groups, you know. So we'll get that out to you probably over the weekend or top of next week. I'll probably film it maybe this weekend or Monday. And then we have another video that I'm going to be doing that will be in reference to the progress we made for the year. So there's been a couple of comments and questions. I just want to address those so that we can keep things in perspective and make sure that everyone is working with the same information. So update. Well, let's take the first, the most obvious was the yield sign. So that was unexpected. OTC is aware, and I'm going to discuss this. This was something that's a little premature, and this kind of let the cat out of the bag. But we were looking at going QB, so uplisting from pink alternative reporting to a fully reporting or SEC filer on the QB. And the reason we would be doing that was since we did not make the progress we wanted to make this year in reference to structure. So keep in mind, I think I've gone over this a couple of times, 2021 was really dedicated to structuring the company and making sure that everything was ready for 2022 so we could focus on revenues. And that was how we wanted to launch into an uplist. Unfortunately, we were not able to make the progress that we wanted. And I think I've spoken to many of you in reference to what we've accomplished and what we wanted to accomplish. So we did a lot this year. We got a lot done. So I definitely want to commend everyone here at the company and even the subsidiaries. They've done a fantastic job. I set the bar pretty high. My expectations are always very high. But we had some challenges getting through with, we'll say, service providers and third parties. I'm going to get into that here in a few minutes as to some of the changes being made there. But the yield sign. So in order to go QB, in order to be fully reporting, we have to submit our audits. We'll be wrapping those up hopefully in the next 90 days or so. It's been a long, arduous process. You know, it's not just one company. When you're auditing a public company, any of its assets that are more than 51% owned have to be audited as well, right? So we have 5 subsidiaries, 1 public company, 6 companies, 2 years of audits. Do the math. It takes a very long time, usually about 30 days per year. So when you look at that, imagine how long it takes. We've got pretty far down the road in a relatively brief period of time. I would have preferred that we made more progress. Obviously, I'm sure you share that sentiment with me. Well, because of that, it looks like, and I spoke with Morgan over at OTC, and they've been very helpful. So I understand we got some comments that were relatively negative or derogatory about OTC. You have to understand what they're up against. And I'm not defending any shortcomings that people may perceive that OTC has. No one's perfect. But they've been very good to us. They've been very responsive. They always take my calls, which is more than I could say for some of the service providers in our orbit. And again, we're going to go into that in a minute. So they went through in an effort to help us to make sure that everything was up to date because they know these disclosures are being reviewed. There was a kind of a scriber's error, if you will. The dates were incorrect. So when you go into OTC and you upload these files, there's a drop-down menu. The dates are all the same except the years. Apparently there was an error made in reference to that, and it said 2019 instead of 2021. So a very simple fix. Everything was fixed within 10 minutes and re-uploaded. I did it personally myself. It didn't need to go back to Tom. It was not necessarily a financial or disclosure issue. It was more, semantics or grammatical, if you will, and easily fixed. So why isn't the yield sign off, right? So the yield sign is not off because they're a little backed up. But I have assurances from them. They will get to it, and they'll take care of it. This yield sign doesn't affect trading. We're still trading. Market liquidity is where it needs to be. So it really doesn't affect anything, but it's ill-timed for us because there are a couple of things that this affects, obviously announcements and a few other things. I push it out a couple of days or a week, and now we're into Christmas and so forth. So right now we are working through, that's been addressed, we're waiting on them, and now we're working through the audits. Now I want to be clear because I know this is why I did not want to announce that we were looking at going QB, because the next question is, when do you go? Hard date, I need a time frame. I'm not going to give any guidance on that. That is a process that's several weeks long after, I want to be very clear, after the audits are submitted, which means they'd have to be completed. QB 1 year, New York 2 years, okay? So I want to be very clear, in order to go QB, you have to have 1 year full of audits fully completed. To go to New York, you have to have 2 years of full audits. And also if you want to do your S1. So that's what we're still working towards all of that. We're still moving forward. Nothing's changed except the time frame. Now I'm really emphasizing this time frame because I stopped giving time frames a while back, because if I said, we're targeting 2 to 3 weeks, or we're looking at potentially getting there, then everyone calculated 2 weeks and they figured out what that date was, and then we were held to that. That was a failure on our part to leave any window of interpretation. So we're no longer doing that. So I'm really emphasizing that I did not want to announce that we were going to go QB until we were essentially already there. Unfortunately, this happened, and it lets the cat out of the bag, so we had to address that. I wasn't going to make up some fantastic story to explain why a yield sign went on. That's not really in my nature. So as far as why we're pushing things out is I need to have certain structures in place. Certain corporate executions have to be made, and that cannot all be done at the same time. There's a sequence that things have to occur in, so it's going to take up a little bit of time. And I think for us, it will not affect banking, finance, capital position, or any raise that we were looking at doing, whether we stay QB or go to New York, because what we're really looking at doing is moving the company forward so that we can build revenues, right? So, you have to have the foundation in place, which is what we've been putting in place, and then we're going to work on the revenue. So 2022, the focal point will be wrapping up 2021's structural implementation and executions, if you will. And I hate to be cryptic, I really can't telegraph some of these things. There's a sequence, and I don't want to misguide it, okay? So then after that, it's going to be, the rest of the year will be revenues. So as far as the target date for uplisting on either QB or New York, I'm not giving any guidance. And I know that there are going to be those out there that aren't going to listen to what I'm saying right now, and they're going to call in or send in the messages to Candace, but the answer will be the same. There will be no guidance given. Okay. Once I have a firm date confirmed and it's set in stone, you'll be the first to know. But I don't want to have any miscommunications. I really want to manage expectations. People have asked us to do that, and I committed to doing that. So we're working on that, and this is me trying to fulfill that promise. One of the things we will be doing, and we have been doing, is restructuring some of the subsidiaries for efficiency and growth. And we will be bringing in some management to help either take over and or alleviate some of the workload. So one of the things people brought up, we've got a question, and I'll do a questions video, but I'll address it here. I guess someone had asked if I had really said that I was looking for a replacement for myself as the chief executive so I could focus on UAT and a few other things within special projects. That is true. We're not there yet. When that's going to happen, I don't know. The answer to that is as soon as possible. I have other things I'd like to really focus on. And, when you are wearing many hats, it's inefficient in many ways. And when you're looking at a 7-day work week, at some point, that needs to come to its natural conclusion. So we are working towards bringing in some folks that would take over some of the subsidiaries. So those people that are in place would be able to move to a different position in the company and focus on what they really do well, right? So I won't get into specifics. Everyone is aware of that. That was part of the agreement when we brought everything together. It was many times by their request. You start a company, you build it. Now someone who's better at that specific function comes in and takes over. I'm taking my time explaining this because I want to. It's been a while since we've spoke, and I want to make sure everybody really understands this. Okay, so no one's leaving any company. I want to be very clear on that. The team that's in place now will remain. I'm not displeased with, and I think we all work great together. We've gotten a lot accomplished, but we need to onboard some more folks to help us with everything. Service providers. A lot of changes have been made, and some other changes will be made. The past couple of weeks have been several conference calls with third-party vendors, with service providers, with manufacturing or supply chain partners, and I gave everyone, because of the price increases on some of the supplies, raw materials, and so forth, I gave about a dozen service providers, maybe it was a little more, now that I think of it, but I gave them 24 hours to get back to me with what is their best price, because we were seeing price increases up to 27%. That was never going to fly with me. I was not going to allow that to affect. And then there was also a delay in delivering materials and parts. And I gave everyone 24 hours to get back to me. And I know that could sound kind of harsh, but it's the end of the year. I need to make progress. I need to make sure that we're set up for 2022. And I would say out of it's probably closer to 14, 12 of them are gone and they were replaced immediately. I already had that lined up because I kind of assessed, what some folks were going to tell us, one of which I'll give an example, not a specific name. We were talking in the conversation, so we got to bear with us because we're still working from home. The relationship's over right there. At some point, you have to stop using the excuse that it enables or rationalizes you doing less, right? We're all working around the clock. We're going to move forward. We can't have a weak link. So that relationship was terminated immediately. I had suspected with that particular group that was going to be the case, and 24 hours previously I already had a replacement anyway before I had that phone call in anticipation of that. So we literally I can say not only did not see a delay, but now we've seen an acceleration of what we're going to be able to do in the next couple of weeks because these providers are hungry, for lack of a term, and they're professional. They're delivering. So a lot of I'm going to make there are some press releases where I'm not going into specifically who or what service providers. Some of them are immaterial to the public, so they won't be disclosed. But there are a few things that we're changing, and those around us are going to be held to a higher level of accountability and professionalism so that we're not held back. In 2021, we had a lot of lag and stall due to relationships within our orbit that were not complementary. So everyone was here, always working and working to get things done. There were just a lot of delays in a few areas, and it caused a fallback, if you will. That's not going to happen in 2022. And I think I made it very clear to everyone. I know I made it very clear to everyone that's the past. I'm not going to tolerate that moving forward. So you're going to get some press releases on some of those changes, and that's why. If anyone has any questions, if you really feel I need to do a video on a particular service provider that is publicly announced, then I'll do one and we can get into that. But I'm not here to, besmirch anyone or any company. It wasn't going to work with us and what we're trying to accomplish in the time frame we're trying to accomplish. Okay. So Novi. So with Novi, get a lot of questions on this, and I get it. But I have an update for you. It's probably not the one you want to hear. We're still working with the FDA. It's, we just got an email from them, I want to say 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, maybe a little longer. But they said they're changing their focus on home testing devices. That's kind of what we do, right? So in Bachelor with Novi. And we're still being contacted by them. They do stay in communication, and that's great. But progress is not being made quick enough. We're a company, right? You have to make something and sell it at a profit. I told you 2022 is about revenues. I need to move forward with that. So what are we doing? So the next generation Novi devices, and before anyone sharpshoots me on this, all that really means is that we have an enhanced or improved testing tube, and we made the screen a color screen, and we're going to go into production on those units and get some field testing, some reviewing done on that, and then we'll get looking at approval outside of the United States or internationally. We're still going to file the 510K, and we are still going to proceed with the FDA, but they are moving oddly very slow. At some point, and I understand where we are with the state of affairs around the globe, but it seems that Europe and India seem much more aggressive in soliciting companies like us to bring their technology there. And, we're a company. We have to sell something and make a revenue or a margin on that particular product, or else it doesn't really make much sense. So that's where we're at on Novi. My expectation is that we'll start picking up some momentum with Novi as soon as those units are completed. When will those units be completed? It'll be, I'm going to estimate here. I don't like giving time frames, but we have a lot of things already lined up. So in Q1, you'll hear about those devices going out, and then we'll probably similarly make announcements on agreements or contracts on that particular device within Q1. That's a broad term intent, a broad time frame intention. Okay. So we are working with, and I'm bringing this up only because I think it's become a little obvious to shareholders. We are working with some banking and capital groups to not only help with our capital position, but also with our S1, potentially the Reg A Plus, if there's needs to be a bridge, and then lines of credit. So there's a couple of lines of credit that I will be signing for in the next couple of weeks. Obviously, the holidays kind of, make it a little difficult to pin down a time with everyone, but we already have the approval papers. We're going to talk about some of the terms and conditions, and then I'm probably going to increase one of the lines of credit so that we can move forward on a few things within the organization. So that's already been put in place, and I expect that you'll get announcements on that in January. Absolutely, just because I already have all the paperwork. As far as acquisitions, so I don't like getting ahead of a press release, but I know some people had sent in questions, and it's valid concern because I mentioned it. The end of the year is here, so we will be making an announcement on a specific acquisition. There are 3 total, 2 more of which are in the final stages, and then the last one is on hold until I get through the first 3, right? So it's potentially 4, let me just be very clear, potentially 4, one of which I'll give you some information on in the next week or 2. I don't know that it necessarily will be before the end of the year, potentially. It's just a matter of timing and when it would be prudent to do so. And then the other 2 they're fine. We're getting those finalized. And I know people get frustrated and say, well, what takes so long? You're talking about complicated transactions, so it's not something that's done in a weekend, if you will. A lot of paperwork has to go back and forth, a lot of due diligence, and you need to make sure that everyone's on board. You're talking about a lot of money, and you're talking about a lot of people within the organization. So I'll give you some updates in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully before the end of the year. If not, you'll probably get it first or second week of January. Okay. H2O Processing. A lot of progress has been made with H2O. I know it doesn't seem that way. Again, these are very complicated transactions with relatively complicated companies. It's just, you'd be surprised the gauntlet of legal teams you go through making sure for some of what I would term some pretty silly semantics that waste a lot of time. That being said, while these contracts are being negotiated, and I think I made this announcement previously, we've done several demos. We had another demo coming up. I think next week don't hold me to it. I think next week is another demo. Some additional water samples are being brought in. We've got about a dozen companies submitting water samples pertaining to metal contamination, heavy metals. And what they need to see is a certified water analysis that shows we removed the metal. So that's a process. That's not something you do on a tabletop. Yes, we do have those tabletop, total dissolved, many people say TDS. It's a little more complicated than that. These are pretty. I think one of those units was, I think it was like $45,000 for this little tabletop unit, and that's not even a certified system. It's got to go to a certified lab and so forth. So we're processing dozens of water samples from oil companies and mining companies as well. And each company will require, it looks like, probably a couple of systems. And for those of who know how much those systems cost, it's a pretty significant purchase order. So we're working through that now. I know that our strategic partner, PP&D, is working through some bids. For that, there's an offset. There's a small commission that goes to H2O whenever they transact. So that's good. And then the joint venture company that they formed is working on a few things as well. So we are coming to the conclusion. We are getting things finalized. But again, you have to take into consideration. I think a lot of people don't understand this. They say, well, what's taking so long with the contracts? If they sign these contracts and everything is squared away right away, they are held accountable by the federal government if this water is put into a stream or is put in what they call in ground, and it doesn't test out. So they need to, this is why there's all these lawyers involved, to cover themselves, say, we entered into this agreement, and at the time we had it certified and this system did this. So this is what they're looking at. It's more of cover yourself and make sure that you're mitigating liabilities as much as possible. That's why it takes so long, because you're dealing not only with the company, not only with lawyers, but you're also dealing with federal regulators. And then a lot of people don't understand, you're dealing with state officials, state politicians. In this case, we're looking at several states: Pennsylvania, Wyoming, Texas, Oklahoma is another one. So you're looking at several states that are answering to their individual regulatory oversight officials. So keep that in mind, and that's why this takes so long. Everything's progressing. Nothing's dropped off. If anything else, they just keep piling up. The concern now, which is why I've gone back to the banking side of things, is that we need to make sure we have enough space for manufacturing. Right now, we would be set up where we could easily process. It takes about 90 days to get in all of the components. You have to understand, there's no off-the-shelf. Well, there are some off-the-shelf parts, but you're looking at in excess of 90% of this system is proprietary. So raw materials come in and components have to be made. So you're looking at a 90-day process and as far as lead times in many cases. And then it's looking at another 90 days plus, okay, so it could be 3, 4, 6 months depending on the system, right? So if it's just the standard system, you're probably looking at somewhere around 3 to 4 months. If you're putting in evaporators, if you're adding other systems, then things change, right? So and the price tag change. So if anyone who knows, remembers from the previous videos, those systems, 3 tractor trailers, a command center, or a bus that operates remotely, and then you put an evaporator system in. Now you're looking at from a $2 million to a $2.5 million system, and these units can go up to $4 million, depending on what the system needs to do. And each site's going to need multiple systems. So, and they're all going to be different. It looks like they're all going to be different. So it's complicated, right? And when you look at assembling these units, you need a pretty large site. So one of the reasons for bringing in the banking and line of credit is we're going to need to acquire some land and have a facility that we can manufacture and have a staging area for these systems. Originally, we were looking at, I think it's a 3.5 acre site. That's not going to be big enough. It looks like it's not, and I'll know probably within the next 30 days if we need to figure something else out. The square footage of the building was about what we needed, but it looks like we're going to have to go a little larger. So that's the concern. So these are all, I know a lot of people are concerned about, what's going on. I haven't heard from you in a month or so forth. There's a lot happening. We're also in the middle of year end. Okay, so financials, disclosures, the annual, the audits. There's a whole litany of things that this is a very, very busy time of year. I know everybody's thinking of, Thanksgiving, and Christmas, and Hanukkah, and all that, but here at the company, we don't really have that luxury right now. It's a lot happening going into 2022. So that's the update. If you have any questions, put them in. I'm going to be doing that video tonight or tomorrow, most likely. I'll try to get through a couple of these videos. I have some things I want to go over with everyone. So if you have any more questions, especially from this video, put them in and I'll try to include them in the next video. Okay? So I'll look forward to talking to you next time. It'll be in a couple days, but hopefully this was a good update. It brings you up to speed as to where we're at, and I do apologize for the length of the video, but I just want it to be very clear and articulate in detail what's going on, what we've been doing, and where we're headed. Okay? So I'll talk to you next video, and I hope everybody has a great day.